This is a Fulcrum Side Quest mini-sode. Short, focused opinions on psychology and storytelling, personal reflections, unscripted thoughts, maybe even some of your suggestions. Here's Fulcrum.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Fulcrum, and today we're stepping a little outside the usual profile format for something a bit lighter, but still rooted in character, story, and the psychology behind it all. Today, I'm joined by author Rick London, creator of The Dancing Wolfeman, a story that blends humor, personality, and something a little deeper beneath the surface. Rick, I'm really excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate that. So I'll let your audience know who I am. Yeah, my name's Rick London. That's actually my pen name. My name is actually Ricardo Cotto. I chose the pen name of Rick London because my story is a werewolf story, but with a twist. And I chose Rick London because most werewolf stories and werewolf movies were set in England. And when I was trying to come up with a catchy pen name, I came up with names that didn't work. And then I'm like, hey, England is where it became famous, right? So it's like London, right? And my nickname's Rick. So there you go. Pretty easy peasy, right? Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So before we dive into the story itself, I'd love to start with you. What sparked the idea for The Dancing Wolfman?
So that's a great question. And I think it's an interesting way it happened. So Super Bowl Sunday, 1998, I went to a friend's house.
I was 4.
Yeah, you were 4. You were a baby. You still are a baby. I'm 61, so you were a baby. You're still a baby. So I believe it was January 25th, a Sunday.
Okay, I was
Sunday.
3. Not quite 4 yet.
By the way, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. I live in Pacifica, which is just a town about 7 miles south of San Francisco on the coast, suburbs. So in 1998, I was living about 50 miles southeast of where I'm at in a town called Fremont. I think it's actually the 5th biggest city in California. So I was living in Fremont, and I got invited to go see the Super Bowl with a good friend of mine. And to get there, I had to drive 2 freeways and then get off this exit. It's still there, North Vasco Road. It's a beautiful little country road. At the time, we had some rain, so it was really green. It was beautiful, rolling hills everywhere. Just beautiful drive, just 1 lane on each side. And as I was driving there, there was cows pastures, and one cow almost came up to my car. I slowed down and it came almost up to my car, and I was like, wow. So I drove to my friend, which is about 8 miles from where I got onto the exit off the freeway. So I drove up there, watched the Super Bowl, had a great time. And then when the Super Bowl was over, it was already dark. So I drove back the same way to get to the freeway. And this time, the light posts were on, but they were not close to each other. They were about maybe 500 feet apart, something like that. And the cloud cover came low and there was fog and some fog too. So it looked real eerie. And I think it was only the 1 car on the road, maybe. I don't remember, but it looked really desolate, right? And it reminded me of the beginning scene of a movie called An American Werewolf in London, my favorite werewolf movie. If any of you have ever seen it, I recommend you see it. It's a perfect horror movie. It's gory. It's kind of bloody, but it's a great Wolfman. It's got romance in it too. It's from 1979. It doesn't have a big cast, but it's a great movie. And it actually got some acclaim for the special effects when he transformed into a Wolfman. Because, they didn't have CGI back then. So, yeah. So it got a lot of acclaim for that. And it's just a great Wolfman movie. It's my favorite. And so it reminded me of the beginning scene because these 2 friends are walking in the moors in England, right? And it's real foggy and scary, real eerie. And it reminded me of that. And then that memory stayed in my head. For some reason, it just stayed with me. I have a vivid imagination, vivid memory of certain things. And that one just happened to stay in my brain. And then not this past December, but the December before that in 2024, I was hanging out with some friends on a Friday night and we were talking about old friends. And, we talked about all these people that we knew because we interacted with all the people that we were talking about. And they reminded me of my friend Nick. That's who I went to go see the Super Bowl with. And as I got in the car to go home from talking to my friends, that thought popped into my head again. And I'm like, and I remember, thinking about the werewolf. And then I'm driving home and I'm like, what if a werewolf came out, right? My imagination going wild, right? So I'm like, what if a werewolf came out? What would I tell? What would I tell the werewolf? Please don't bite me. It's like I got a family. Some silly stuff like the Wolfman's going to listen, right?
Yeah.
And then as I went home, it just stayed with me, right? And I woke up the next morning and it just stayed with me. And it just kept lingering in there. And I'm like, for some reason, I felt like, hey, that's got to do something with this, right? And at first, I wanted to create some hyper realistic cinematic videos to post on my YouTube channel, but I'm not well skilled in that realm. I don't have the skills, and I tried it on my own. And I didn't want to really pay anyone because I didn't really have an outline yet of what I wanted. But
Right.
as the thought stayed in my head, I kept the outline and the plan for that expanding, and I switched gears to a movie. I mean, not a movie, excuse me, to a book. And I'm like, you know what? I could write a book about this. But I didn't want to write any werewolf story because they're all the same. They all
Right.
come out the same. You get the it's usually a man. I could write a
Mm-hmm.
werewolf story about a woman becoming a she wolf, right? A she
Yeah.
werewolf, right? That would have been interesting, right? But then I'm like, no, it would still be the same. They become a vicious, brutal, nasty killer, and then they get hunted, and then they die at the end. And I'm like, no, I don't want that. But I was still intrigued by the werewolf lore. And so around this time last year, my son, I got a 16-year-old son, he was taking music class at high school. He's a sophomore. And no, at that time he was a freshman, excuse me. He was a freshman,
Okay.
and he was trying out the trombone. And so he brought the trombone home, and behind me, in the wall behind me, he would put the case down there. And as I'm coming up with my idea what to do with this Wolfman story, I kept looking over, several times, and I looked at the case and I'm like, bingo, music. So I said, you know what? I'm going to use the power of music as the focal point of when he becomes a werewolf, that he doesn't become the monster that a typical werewolf does, right? So music helps him control his primal instincts to become, that vicious killer. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to write a story about a guy who turns into a werewolf, because it reminded me of that saying, music calms the savage beast, right? But I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want to make it where like, oh, music, all of a sudden he's, real docile, and, like
Yeah.
you put a leash on and then he starts licking your hand, not like that, right?
Right.
But I wanted to make the music, but I'm like, okay, but that could be anybody, right? Music, everybody loves music, but
Mm-hmm.
it can be anybody. That could happen to anybody. So I'm like, I had to make my character where music goes much deeper into that person's soul and psyche more than just, any typical random stranger. So I came up with the idea of making my protagonist a high school music teacher by day and who also
Right.
becomes a DJ by night. And so his parents were in the music industry, and they've been playing beautiful music since he was a baby. They're always playing music. And so that music is just, it's part of his soul, part of his who he is. And as he grew up, he learned to become a DJ in college, and, he loves being a teacher, and meets a wolfman and gets bitten. And because music is so embedded in his DNA and his soul, I use that as a connection. So when he listened to music, when he became a wolfman, that first transformation, he was going to kill his first victim, but he hears music in the pods and the iPods of this lady who's jogging, and he's about to kill her, but he listens to music, and it changes his consciousness back into a human consciousness. And so he became
Oh.
himself again, but he's still the wolf, right?
Right.
Because
Okay.
the full moon is still out. The power of the full
Right.
moon is what keep. But instead of becoming a killer, he becomes a protector, a savior. So I
Right.
use that, and then each time he transforms, something different happened. Yeah, I just gave it a different twist,
That's
and
awesome.
yeah, something different, right? Something different
Yeah.
to absorb. Yeah.
So, and I hate to talk about it because I don't like the series at all, but gotta give credit where credit's due, right? The Twilight series.
Oh yeah.
That it was a different take on,
Yeah.
the whole werewolf thing. And then there's another series out. Oh my gosh, what's it called? Give me 1 second. I have to look it up.
About a werewolf?
It's not about a werewolf specifically, but it involves werewolves. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I like the Twilight series. That was good because they're fighting the vampires, right? And
Right.
she's in love with the vampire, and she's in love with the wolfman, right?
Yeah.
That's
It's
a
like
different take.
this.
I love that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can't even remember the author's name right now.
Can't think of it either. It's a series, you said? It's a book series
Yeah. Yeah. It's
of werewolves.
it talks about the Nephilim. There's vampires, there's werewolves, there's demons.
All these paranormal creatures, huh?
Yes.
I can't think of that one. That sounds real interesting. I like that. And it was a very
No, it's
popular
not
book
that
series.
one. Yeah.
Not Anne Rice, right?
No, it's not Anne Rice.
She was
She was
she wrote a lot.
great.
She's great. She wrote a lot of good horror. I mean,
Yeah.
and it's not Stephen King. I know that.
No. One of the characters' names is Clary.
But did it get adapted into a movie or series?
It did, but it wasn't
It wasn't that good.
anything like the books at all.
Nothing like the book.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. City of Bones, Cassandra Clare.
Cassandra Clare.
There it is.
That's the
Yeah.
author?
Yeah.
Cassandra Clare. I'm going to write it down. Let's see who that
Yeah.
is.
So
I'm going
there's
to look her up.
she's got a lot of books. And
Cassandra Clare.
there's warlocks in it. Yep. So there's City of Bones, City of Ashes, City of Glass, City of Fallen Angels, City of Lost Souls, and City of Heavenly Fire. And then so that's like the main series. And then there's a prequel series, and then there's a sequel series.
Wow.
And yeah, there's a lot. And then there's like side series of
oh my God, spin-offs, huh?
Some of the side characters. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot.
She did well for herself. Good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fantasy lovers out there and paranormal, and it's just, yeah. I love that genre.
And so like with her series, the werewolves aren't like bad.
Mm-hmm.
In one of the areas, the pack lives in this abandoned police station, and like that's their home. And I think they can if I'm not mistaken, they can transform whenever. Like
at will, huh?
Yeah, they're not. Well, at least it's not mentioned anyway that they're
full moon.
Yeah, that they're tied to the full moon.
There used to be, I don't know if it's from her books or something. There used to be this werewolf show. It was real gory back in the late 80s. And I think those werewolves transformed at will as well. And they were huge. I mean, they turn into these huge, 8-foot monsters, 9-foot monsters, and with, like 3-inch fangs and all that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was a TV show. I forget the name. I kind of watched it a little bit here and there, but it was just too bloody and gory, and it's like, it's okay,
Right.
And it didn't make sense because, they transform at will, right? And the whole werewolf lore is the moon, right? The power of the moon, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I kept it like that. I wanted to keep it like that. I even have a twist in there in my book of a daytime full moon. I have a chapter in there of what happens when the daytime full moon comes out and what it does to Titus.
Oh, yeah, because like sometimes during the day you can see the moon even though the sun isn't all the way down.
No, yeah. So I threw that in there too. Another twist in the book too. Yeah, daytime
That's interesting.
Full moon.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. So good stuff to check out.
Yeah, totally. So I always find it interesting how ideas evolve. Sometimes they start as something small and then take on a life of their own. And that's exactly what yours sounded like.
Yeah. And it's funny, when I was writing all this, I just wanted to write a good story. And as it turns out, the people that have read it and getting feedback, and I got a story to share about something like that. It's got layers, because the psychology of it, right? The duality of man, guy who becomes a werewolf, but through the power of music refuses to behave like a monster. And then his identity, right? He has to deal with his identity, right? Because he has that consciousness, that human's consciousness. So he's got to deal with the wolf inside of him, and then he's got to navigate the love story, right? Because he meets the woman of his dreams.
Oh.
And he saves her, and then and then there's somebody who's after him. He has to deal with the antagonist, right?
Right.
So he's got and this is a high school music teacher. He's not introvert, but he's a little bit of a loner, but he's into his craft, right? He's into his music, and he loves, being a DJ, but he's not a killer. And now he's got this whole new thing he has to deal with, right? And how to navigate that. And so it's like, that's why I couldn't just make it any random person. It had to be somebody. It had to be somebody who, the reader has to, when they read the novel, has to be believable. So I wrote that in the book somewhere where he goes, in retrospect, when he, how music became part of who he is, and started as a baby in the music, and then him growing up in high school, and how he loved it, when mom and dad had parties, and he learned how to dance from all his neighbors, and the friends and family. They were always happy, joyous moments, all based around music, right? And how that shaped his personality and his persona, and how he became so good at it, and people came to him, hey, you're so good at this, could you show me this? Or he became really good at dancing. Hey, could you show me this move? And then, going to college and meeting DJs, because in college, there's a lot of parties, right? And so because he was so good at music and picking up notes and very good with all that, he decided to try that, became really good at that, and I had to make a real believable character that people can relate to. That they say, okay, yeah, yeah, I could see this happening to this guy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. All right. For anyone listening who hasn't experienced the book yet, how would you describe the Dancing Wolfman in your own words? And you don't have to go into specifics
hmm
or any kind of spoilers.
How would I describe it? I would say I could say it's a paranormal, but it's I guess I would say that. I would say it's a paranormal. The popular phrase now is romantasy, right? Romance and fantasy, right? I call it a paranormal romantasy adventure thriller suspense because it's got all those in one, right? A werewolf tale with a twist. It's not your typical werewolf tale. So somebody asked me, goes, "What is your book about?" I would say it's a werewolf tale with the twist. What's the twist? I go, "Well, then you have to read it to find out." But when I
Right?
tell
Why
everybody,
would you ask that?
yeah, but when I tell
He's not
people,
going to tell you.
no, but when I tell people, that music transforms his consciousness back to himself and he refuses to behave like a monster, people would say, "Oh, that's the twist." I go, "Yeah." And so because of that, different things happen. The killing doesn't happen, like I said, he becomes a savior, he becomes a protector. He doesn't have that experience of being a killer. He doesn't have that in his blood because he's a high school music teacher. If I had made the story for somebody who not so much a violent past, but who's been in, situations where they had to defend themselves and had to, maybe kill somebody to defend themselves or, taking orders to do that, then it would be a whole different, the whole story would be different, right? And I would have to write about that. So I didn't want to do that. So I had to take somebody that's the total opposite. So, and there you have it. Yeah. So somebody would ask me, "Hey, what's your story about?" It's about a werewolf who, through the power of music, is able to control his primal instincts and become a savior of sorts. Sort of an easy way to describe it, right? Like you said, don't give it away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things I naturally gravitate toward is the psychology behind characters, like what
hmm
drives them, even in lighter or more playful stories.
hmm
So, with the Wolfman being such a unique character, how would you describe what drives him at his core?
Well, he's a teacher by trade, right? His primary, he DJs at night because he loves music and he's really good at it. But at his core, he's a teacher and he's a very smart guy, athletic. I even wrote in there that he was a track star in high school and in college. But at his core, he loves teaching. He loves it. He loves molding young minds, young musicians. To him, teaching music and having kids develop their instinct for music and become one with their instruments and him being part of that, that's what drives him. That's what gives him the greatest pleasure. So if anything, he's just constantly he's focused on just being a good teacher. And I said earlier he was very smart. He could have been something else. He could have gone into something else and made a lot of money because he was a lot of smart. But as he grew up and as he's, in high school and in college and people coming up to him, it's like, "Hey, how'd you figure this out? How do I figure this set of notes? Or why are you so good at the piano?" And just when people coming up to him and asking for his direction and then him showing him and then the people picking up what he taught them and implementing that and succeeding with that just gives him the most joy and pleasure and in purpose, right? That's his purpose in life. Molding minds and becoming, great musicians. That's his goal, right? So that's where he gets the most joy from. And he doesn't have anyone in his life, a special person in his life, because he's so involved in his being a teacher and DJ. Yeah, he meets people, he's had dates, he meets them here, but he hasn't met the right woman until he becomes a wolfman. Well, it should, right? Because a good story deserves it needs
Oh,
romance in it,
yeah, it's
right?
got to have a
Right?
happy ending, right?
Yeah, yeah. And that's the other thing, my book. My guy lives, it's like this is just volume one. My guy lives, it's the lady he meets lives, and the people that he saves, go on and they go on bigger and better adventures, which I'm not gonna give away. I'm gonna write in my second book and my third one. I got plans to continue the story. So yeah.
Okay. So for my next question,
Mhm.
do you see him as more symbolic or is he meant to just exist as he is on the surface? That's kind of a deeper question.
No,
I
I think
just
he's
realized that.
symbolic. I like that question. I like that. No, he's symbolic. He's gonna become a symbol for something bigger. You know, I plan to make him.
Okay.
My goal at first wasn't that, but as I wrote the book more and more, and as it came out, I wanted him to be bigger than life. You know,
Mm-hmm.
as he gets more known later on in the other books I write, yeah, he's gonna be. People are gonna want to meet this guy because
Right.
he symbolizes something good. You know, he's not this
Mm-hmm.
beast. You know, it's the book is kind of a metaphor in a way too, right? You know,
Mm-hmm.
here's a guy, you know, who has every right to become a monster, you know, who has it, but because he's a morally grounded human being, you know, he's more inclined to act on his good characteristics and his moral background, his moral upbringing. He decides not to, you know, he refuses to again, he refuses to be a monster. So instead he decides, you know what, I'm gonna be merciful and become a savior.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
I like it.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you think there's a part of him that reflects something people recognize in themselves, even if they don't immediately realize it?
Yeah, that beast inside of you, right? The
Mm-hmm.
that you know, I think we all have it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We at times, you know, we could say, you know, even in the morning, right? We could say, "Oh, I haven't drank my coffee yet." Don't ask
Right.
me that question, right? You know, I've been with people who are like they look like monsters when they haven't had their coffee, right?
It
And it's
kind
like,
of,
whoa, stay away from them, you know,
right. It kind
or
of
they're having a
reminds
bad
me,
day.
I
Go
was
ahead.
going to say, it kind of reminds me of that 3 Days Grace song. Oh my God, Animal I've Become.
Oh, who's that? Whose song is that?
3 Days Grace,
3 Days Grace. And what's the song called?
Animal I Have Become.
Animal I have I gotta look that up.
They're a rock band. They're a
I gotta
little
look that up.
They're a little well, I wouldn't say hardcore.
Hmm.
It's hard to describe their like genre.
Yeah. No, so you know, back to your question. That's a great
Yeah.
question. I like that question. You know, you don't have to have a moment where something has to give you the reason to behave morally and to behave with
Right.
your good characteristics. You just have to decide on your own. It's like, hey, you know what? I don't need to make excuses, right? Don't
Right.
make excuses for acting, you know, like a hole, right?
Yeah.
Or being mean to people, right? Just because that's because you can, you know. Instead, you know, I think it takes more power and greater force and more gusto, more oomph out of yourself to
Mm-hmm.
behave in a good way than it is to bad, right? To
Mm-hmm.
me, it's like I've had moments like that too, believe me, many, many times.
Oh yeah.
You know, but
Everyone has. I would
yeah,
imagine like there's some like everybody has their breaking point. I don't
absolutely.
want to call it breaking point because like that could be like an extreme thing, you know?
Hmm.
But everybody has their point where they've just had enough
Hmm.
and they're just like I'm done. You know?
Yeah.
And
That
then they
happens. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, there's certain situations in life that are they're too much to handle at one time, and it
Yeah.
stretches your emotions all the way out, right? And you're spread thin, and you can't handle it. And yeah, that's but still, you know, I think if anything, the message from the book would be it's like, hey, yeah, those things happen, but you know what? You don't have to succumb to them. You don't have to. You don't. You know, you still have a choice. When
Yeah.
things get really bad, you still have a choice of keeping calm. You know, assessing how intense a situation is, and that you don't have to act out. Again, I've had situations like that, and I didn't act out in the best way. You know, but
Hmm.
as I've gotten older, I don't make excuses anymore. You know, I don't make
Right.
so you know, for me, I maybe that's why I wrote this book. Maybe it came out of my subconscious, right? You know,
Maybe.
that I'm trying to be better at being a better husband, better dad, better person,
Hmm.
because I do strive to do those things, and I don't have to act out on the monster that's in me. So again, you know, my book, the story is just like again, it's just a metaphor, you know, in a
Right.
way, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I always love pulling back the curtain a bit on how something like this actually comes together. So, what does your creative process look like? Or what did your creative process look like from the first idea to your finished story?
So yeah, that's a great question. So with me, I don't have any experience in writing. I didn't take
Hmm.
a writing course.
You don't
That
need
idea
one.
just no, that just came to me, right? And then when
Yeah.
I decided to turn in a book, I'm like, I went online, went on ChatGPT, did some research, how to outline
Yeah.
stuff, and then it gave me some ideas. And then
Right.
I took that, and
Use
then
all the tools you can.
yeah, and I still didn't have an outline, so I had my epilogue, right?
Hmm.
No, excuse me, not my epilogue. I had my prologue, right?
Oh,
I
right.
know
Yeah.
I know how I wanted to start the story, right? And it's
Yeah.
got the hook, right?
Hmm.
Because I wanted to bring it right away that he got bit, that he met
Right.
the
So like
monster.
that's
Right?
your
I didn't want to wait right there, put in the hook
grabbing
right
you.
away. Yeah, I wanted people to be right there. Okay, wolf, he meets a wolf man. And
Hmm.
then, again, since I didn't have an experience, I didn't know. I just kept coming up with an idea for each chapter. And actually,
Hmm.
I didn't have an idea for the whole story. The way I did it was I just came up with an idea for each chapter and added. And then it just came to me every time I read a chapter. I read it from the beginning. I read it from the prologue to that chapter. And as I added another chapter, I did the same thing. I kept
Hmm.
going back. So that was my process. I kept going back to the beginning and read it because I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything and that the flow leading up to the new chapter, meshed with everything before it, right?
Hmm.
And every time, no matter how many, until I got to the end, chapter 19, which is the last chapter, and then the epilogue, right?
Hmm.
Again, I went back to the beginning, read it to make sure that everything meshed, and then that the ending
Like
scene
there
and
was
the
a
epilogue,
natural
yeah,
flow.
it was a natural flow, right? That it made sense for the reader.
Right.
So I think my process was because I'm an avid reader. I love hard-boiled detective novels. One of the things
I
that
feel like those are fun to.
I love those. I love those detective stories. And one of the things I got from some of them, one of them is an author named Jonathan Kellerman. He wrote at least 25 books. His main protagonist was a child psychologist named Alex Delaware, set in Los
Hmm.
Angeles. And his best friend is a gay detective, a homicide detective named Milo Sturgis, right?
Hmm.
And in almost every book, the antagonist was right in front of them. They met the antagonist or they were near
Oh,
him,
wow.
but they didn't discover that that was the antagonist till later when they got more
Right.
clues, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, wow, that's a great thing, right? So
Yeah.
to me, I kind of grabbed that, and I put that in my book. The antagonist is right there without giving the whole clue away of who this person is. And then
Right.
later on, you discover that that's the antagonist, right?
Right.
So it's like, from all the stuff that I read since I was a kid to then, it's like, hey, I just grabbed a little bit of everybody, right? And then
Yeah.
just threw the clues in there. If I wasn't a reader and I tried to come up with a book, I probably would have been stuck. I
Yeah.
probably would have been struck. I was like, how do I make this story? And I think, not I think, I know that I came up with the story because of everything that I read, all the stuff that's in my brain, right? And I knew how to formulate each chapter and each paragraph and each sentence and each, and to make it work where it's like, I don't give everything away. Have to make the
Right.
reader think, right? Have to make them
Yeah.
earn. I have to make the reader earn their way into the end, right? And it's
Yeah.
funny. And there's I met a lot of people, and I do it now and then, where like people read the end,
Uh-huh.
they read the end, and then they go back to see how it got to the end, right?
Yeah.
So, but
Oh,
yeah,
goodness.
yeah. That was my process. And again, I didn't learn that from anybody. It just to me it makes sense. I kept reading every chapter, went back to the beginning, and then came back, and it's like I had to make sure everything flowed. So,
Right. Okay, so you might have answered this a little bit, but I'm going to ask it
mhm.
anyway. So, did the character come first, or did the world around him come first?
That's an interesting question. I think the world around him came first because I wrote that in when he in retrospect, right? When he's going back in
Right.
time, when he was a baby, the
Mm-hmm.
music molding him. So
Mm-hmm.
that was what molded him into becoming who he is. So I
Right.
think the environment came first and then
Okay.
molded him, and then the wolf, the meaning of the wolf. Yeah. So
Right.
if I didn't put that retrospect in there, probably not.
Right.
I would say that he came first, right? But
Right.
again, I had to get depth to my character, right? I had to make the reader believe that why the power of music works in him specifically, why it transforms his consciousness to his human self after he gets bitten when he transforms. I had to give him that depth, right? So people would say, "Oh, that makes sense, right? It's like,
Right.
because if it was just you and I, we listen to music and all of a sudden we're, then it's like, then that's like then that's like a, what do you call it? Then that's a virus or
Oh,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Where it affects everybody the same way,
Yeah,
it's
right.
like, or some kind of magic trick, right? So no, it had to be believable or it just had to make sense, right? So
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Were there any moments in the writing process where the story kind of surprised you? Like you didn't expect it to go where it went?
Yeah, that's oh my God, several times. Yeah, that I think you know what, that's funny you say that. That's another great question. I think that happens to a bunch of authors, right?
Hmm.
It just an idea comes and bingo, like the daytime full moon, right? I don't
Right.
want to give away what happened in that chat, but the daytime, it's just like where did that come from, right?
Right.
And then some other parts that I'm not going to give away either, and yeah, I think about 4 or 5 times and throughout that story, I have things where it's like, as people read, it's like, where did he come up with this, right? It's like just
Right.
popped out as like surprise. And and it's funny when that happened, I'm like, hey, that told me that, hey, I'm on the right track. This is gonna be an interesting story. It's like,
Right.
yeah, I didn't go with the common theme of like a werewolf story, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
changed things up, right? The whole plan too was to give it a twist, but I came up with more twists, so
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. Okay. There's a really interesting balance in stories like this between humor, personality, and meaning. So, how do you approach that balance, making something fun and engaging, but still giving it substance?
Well, it's funny. I have a good sense of humor. My wife can attest to that. My, you know, when my wife and I, when we meet people, they ask them, so how'd you guys meet? And, we tell them the story. I had my wife laughing like 30 seconds after I picked her up.
Oh
And
my
I've had her,
goodness.
I've had her laughing since then, right? So I had a good sense. I have a good sense of humor, and I actually threw some of that in the prologue, right? In the very big, the hook, right? When he meets the
Mhm.
Wolfman, right? I threw some humor in there because, yeah, I threw my personality in there. I think I'm vicariously living through Titus
Yeah,
Wolf, right?
right.
You have to, right? I mean, that's the protagonist, he's my creation. So it's
Right. It's almost like they're a part of you.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, he's got a lot of my personality. So it was a lot of me in him, but also, he's his own person. But yeah, I
Yeah.
had to throw in there, and I knew I had to throw in some. There's humor spread throughout the whole book, right? And I knew I
Hmm.
had to throw in there because if I just wrote a bland, just a dark story with no humor, it's like nobody's gonna want to buy the book, right?
Right.
So it's got its moments of I think some real light, funny moments that I've experienced in my life. And yeah, so I threw that in there. And yeah, he's definitely got some characteristics that I have, you know.
Yeah.
And I've been asked that before. Yeah, it's like people ask me, goes, "Hey, is Titus Wolf, are you him?" Goes, "Yeah, parts of him is. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Why not? Why
Yeah.
not?"
I feel like every author kind of puts a little bit of themselves into their characters.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if you're writing, even if you're a male author and you're writing about a female,
Right. Like, I mean,
it's
just
still
because,
parts of your personality in her, and vice
yeah.
versa, right? There's a lot of great female authors out there. Their protagonists or one of the main characters is a man. Yeah, part of who they are goes in there. Yeah,
Right.
and I think that tells the readers too what type of author that is, right? When you read about
Hmm.
the protagonists and what they are, it's like that tells you kind of person the author is, right? That's a great question. Take it a little step further. Like,
Hmm.
I love this author named Michael Connolly, right?
Hmm.
He's wrote, and part of the name that I got Titus Wolf was of the book that he wrote. He wrote the Harry Bosch series, right? Of a hard-boiled detective in L.A.
Hmm.
And Michael Connolly was the LA Times. He was the cop beat reporter for the LA Times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he met a lot of policemen throughout his career, and then he became a writer.
Hmm.
So when he wrote that character, he probably wrote it based on a lot of the, the people that he met, or someone in
Right.
specific, right? And he
Yeah.
probably threw parts of him in there, and then he created that story. And Amazon actually made a series. It lasted about 10 seasons. And the actor who played him, because I love, Harry Bosch so much, the actor who played him,
Mhm.
his name is Titus Welliver. And he was the perfect Harry Bosch, right? He's the perfect. So I love that name, right? I'm like, hey, Titus Welliver, Harry. I love Harry Bosch, so I use his name for as a my title character. Yeah,
That's awesome.
he took all his experience. He took all his experience of being a beat reporter, the cop beat reporter for the L.A. homicide squad that he was covering, and he used that as his starting point. So
Right.
yeah.
Okay. When someone finishes your book, how do you hope they walk away feeling?
That they want more.
Well,
That they
yeah.
want more. That they love, that they love Titus, and they love that he fell in love with somebody who who saves him, and
Mhm.
the people that he befriended. And like I said, I want him to be bigger than life. And it's like my book is volume one. Like, okay, when is volume two gonna come out? I want because I left a cliffhanger in there. So
Oh,
yeah,
so
yeah, I
you
left a cliffhanger. And
gotta.
yeah, I have to. So yeah, if anything at the very end, it's just simple, right? It's like, hey, when is the next part coming out? I want to see what happens. I want to
Hmm.
see this budding romance and what's going to happen there, and what's going to happen with the other people that he meets, and this bad guy that's hunting him, right? So
Hmm.
because I want them to feel satisfied that the book is good, but dissatisfied, that somewhat disappointed and dissatisfied, because it's like, oh my God, there's more to coming. But it's like, how long do I have to wait for this, right?
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Okay. So, one of my favorite parts of storytelling is how different people can walk away with completely different interpretations.
Hmm.
So, what has surprised you most about how readers have responded to The Wolfman?
That's funny. I've had a few people tell me it's like the book reads kind of like a movie, right? It's like
Really?
this kind of, yeah. I've had a few people tell me that it's like you wrote it like it's a movie. My wife told me that too. Every time I shared it with her, it's like you're writing a movie.
Well,
That
that's
was
kind of
I've
in
had several
line with
people that,
how
yeah.
you like you started out like trying to make, into like a video thing and then you were
Yeah.
like maybe a movie thing.
Yeah. And you know what? And as I kept writing, I didn't think, right? It's just I wanted to the people that have came out, several of them said the same thing. Your story is very visual. It's very cinematic. It's like it's like I'm watching every scene, come
Hmm.
out. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. The other people, I've had one or two other people just tell me how I've developed the main character Titus, and through each transformation, and it's like you learn a little bit more about him each time that he transforms. So I
Hmm.
think those are the two main things that I've gotten so far. But
Okay.
again, when I wrote it, maybe that's just how that's my style, and I
Hmm.
hope to continue it. When I haven't started the second book, but I hope to continue that with my second book to make it where like people really visualize
Hmm.
every paragraph or every chapter, they visualize it and they're in the scene, like they're watching a movie, right? Because
I've
it's hard, it's easier to absorb a story like that, right? When you can visualize it, right?
Yeah. Uh that will never happen for me, unfortunately, because I don't know if it's, the right brain versus left brain thing, but my brain is very analytical, so it's very hard for me to bring, like, when I'm reading, I can't picture the things that I'm reading, so it's just like I'm just reading in my head. That's it. There's no pictures for me, unfortunately. And
Yeah, not
my husband is like blown away by that. He's like, "You're missing out." I'm like, "Well, it's my brain. I don't know."
yeah. No, everybody's different. Everybody's
Yeah.
different. Not every, some people are visual learners, right?
Hmm.
You're analytical. You take the information and you probably dissect everything, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then you
I
paint
guess
the
that's
picture, and you paint the picture in your head after, it's probably for you, I would think you have to read the whole chapter and then you look back at everything and then you kind of start painting your picture based on all the key points, right? And then you could
Yeah.
and then there's some people as they read, they just bingo. I'm like that. As I read a book, it's like every paragraph, I could visualize what's going on, you know.
Yeah, I wish I could do that.
Like if I was the cinematographer of a movie and I could just, panning back or panning forward. I just
Mhm.
that's just me. That's just me. So
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Have there been any interpretations that made you stop and go, I didn't even think of it that way when like somebody was describing how they felt?
About the story?
When readers would tell you how they interpreted the story.
I haven't had much of that, just a very few, just for like the duality of man, uh,
Right.
the conflict between him and having all these things going on, being a teacher, and how does a teacher become a wolfman and then navigate that with a budding romance and having to deal with that because he's got a lot going on since he became a wolfman. And yeah, so I've had one or two people says like, man, you put a lot in there. It's like this guy's got a lot going on but at the same time, it's like not everything happens all at once too. Um,
Right.
because he becomes a wolf man only when the full moon comes out. So he's got to focus on that. And he actually plans after his first transformation, since he knows music is his savior, he
Hmm.
he brings it with him. So he plays his music before he transforms, so he knows not to let those primal instincts of a werewolf overtake him, and then
Hmm.
he becomes this vicious monster. So I could have written the book where it's like that's a lot for him to grasp, but
Hmm.
towards the end, he's like, it's, I guess one good interpretation would be it's like, okay, here's this guy who got bitten by a wolf. That's a lot to handle, and he's cursed. He feels he's cursed, right? But in my case, because of what music does to him, maybe towards the end, maybe the person's interpretation can be different. It's like, hey, he's not cursed. He's been blessed with a supernatural power that he can use to be a totally different entity in a way, or a
Right.
creature, a story, right? Werewolves don't exist, of course, but
Yeah,
um,
but like
but the symbol of
he
it, right?
he gets to, oh, I just had it in my brain and it's um I had an idea of what I was gonna say, but it's gone now. I hate it when that happens. Yeah, it's gone.
That's all right. That's all right. Yeah, I mean, that's, everyone's going to interpret differently. Some people might say, "Oh, he's doomed." It's like he's got too much going on. He's gonna
Yeah,
his and why would that lady want to stay with him? When she could have a budding
a
romance with a
normal
normal person,
person.
right? But it's like then the story would be boring and nobody would buy the book, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's like this is a book of fiction, right? It's
Yeah,
like, it's like stuff that doesn't happen to the everyday person,
right.
right? It's
Yeah.
something to it's
Oh,
entertainment, right?
yeah.
So,
So I I remember what I was gonna say now. It's like the music
hmm
is it's his grounding
hmm
technique.
hmm
So I don't know if a lot of people or have heard about the grounding technique using the five senses
hmm
for when you're having like an anxiety attack or whatever, but he's essentially using that technique with the music to bring himself back to you know almost bringing himself back to reality instead of letting the mindless creature take over.
You got it. Yeah. Because, that music makes him Titus again. So then he
Yeah.
has to how to learn how to behave properly as a monster, right?
Right.
Right? Music brings him back to who he is. So now he has to find out, okay, now I'm a monster. What do I do? Okay, well, I'm not going to act like one. Uh,
Hmm.
but as he keeps transforming, he has to figure out what to do with that and how he can do that. And fortunately for a wolfman, it only happens during the full moon. So
Right.
um,
There's one
and I
thing.
have plans about that later on
Mhm.
in the second book. He's gonna have to deal with that, and because you can't control when the full moon comes out, right? And what if he
Yeah.
has something important to do when the full moon comes out, right?
God.
So he has to find that's something he has to find in him, he has to plan for that, right? He has to plan
Yeah.
ahead. He has to be cognizant of when the full moon is going to come out, and he has to plan for that.
Right.
Um,
I feel
but
like in the week leading up to, he
mhm.
probably can like feel it stirring or something.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing I wrote in there, like five senses. The one thing that what it does to him is his senses, all his senses are heightened as he becomes a
Hmm.
werewolf. Before he becomes a werewolf, right? The I don't know if it's a virus, but whatever it is that's in his bloodstream that becomes part of him. Yeah. His sense of smell, his eyes, right? His vision, his hearing, his touch, everything is just heightened, not always, but specifically right before he transforms, because it's leading up to that part, right? Again, and they don't
Right.
they don't they don't talk they don't do that in other werewolf movies, right? They don't talk
Right.
about that,
And
right?
so, and like, it, I feel like it's natural to bring that up in the story because wolves and dogs, they have a a way better sense of smell than we do. Their hearing is better, like their eyesight is better in certain
Mm,
ways, not
yeah,
necessarily color wise, but
yeah.
so
And he uses that to his advantage, right? and
right.
and actually I have little snippets of that in the story, of his other
Hmm.
senses, right? I have that. And I even threw a funny part of that in the epilogue. I don't know if you read the no, I keep saying epilogue. My apologies.
The
The
prologue.
prologue. I don't know if you read the prologue, right? I even threw that in the prologue where
Oh, well.
um when he meets the wolf, before
Hmm.
before this is my sense of humor. And you've never seen this in a movie or in a book, but when he meets the wolfman before he bites him, he stops the wolfman and he goes, "Hey, you know, don't before you do anything, don't kill me, turn me into a werewolf because then I'll have another personality to deal with, and I have enough of those." And then he
Oh,
tells him, and then he tells him, and he looks at the wolfman and he goes, "And by the way," he goes, "aren't you part dog? And if you are part dog, that means you lick your balls in your ass. And so if you bite me, that means when I'm not killing or ravaging people, when I'm not doing that, I'm gonna be licking my balls in my ass. And that's gross." He goes, and then it's like my family and friends are gonna disown me. He goes, "No, thank you." And then that's when the creature bites him, right? So it's
he's
like I threw
like,
I threw my crude sense of humor in there, but it's like you don't see that in any movie or book, right? It's like you know what? And people could read that. It's like that is crude, but you know what? That's true. He goes, he is
yeah,
part dog, right? And
like,
dogs do lick their balls in their asses. Like, so what does a
yes,
wolfman do when he's not killing people? He's licking his balls in his ass, right? So just to make people think and laugh, right? Just to give them
oh
something to
my,
laugh about, right?
yeah.
So there you go. That's just one good little snippet of my sense of humor that I threw in there, right?
Oh
Because
my, that's
yeah,
funny.
yeah, you don't see that in a book or a movie about a
No,
werewolf, right? So
no, you definitely don't. Like, that's
yeah.
the part that's never brought up.
No, see, and you're laughing, right? And I'm like, I'm hoping when readers read that they'll laugh too. It's like, oh my God, Jesus, this guy, wow. But it makes sense, right? Uh,
Yeah.
it's funny when I put that in there, the editor comes back and goes, "Hey, Richard, this is kind of a little too crude." And I came back and no, I go, "No, it's not." I go, it
It's
makes sense to
real.
me. It's real. And I go,
Yeah.
"No, I'm keeping that in there." And then he comes back, and goes, "You know what? I've come to agree with you." He goes, "That I've read that back," and I go, that makes a lot of sense, and it makes a good point. I go, "Yeah, I mean, he's a dog, right? Werewolf is a
Yeah.
dog. He does dog things, right? When he's not killing and
Yeah.
ravaging people, other creatures, right? He's doing what dog does and smells other dogs' ass or whatever. You know what I mean,
Right.
right? It's like you never see that.
when
Mm.
when my cats are just,
Oh.
I've got two, so I have a female and a male. Um,
Same here, and
but
they're always sniffing their butts, right?
yes, the female is her name is Beans. She she like lifts up her leg and she's
Uh,
like, and
yeah,
I'm like, Beans, that's not very ladylike.
yeah. No, and I threw that in there, right? And it's like, and in that moment where he's, the werewolf is like, and he looks at him all weird. It's like, You know,
He's like,
I just threw
wait,
that at, in all the movies, right? They attack right away, right? But it's
yeah,
like, that was the first point that people get the idea of my personality. Is like, oh my God, where
right.
did he get this from? It's like, you know, again, the whole book is a twist on the werewolf lore, right? It's just
Yeah.
a different twist. There's one right there, right? There's a little twist
I
right
love
there,
it.
right? Yeah, there you go. There you go. And for pet lovers, especially if you're a pet lover, it's like, oh
Yeah,
my
like
God, it's like, thank you for putting that in there. That's true. Werewolves do the
yeah.
same thing, right?
I mean, they gotta.
Yeah.
Um, one thing that I was thinking about that I don't like a question that I was thinking about that just came to mind. I don't have it in my notes. When he transforms in other, stories, it's painful.
Hmm.
So when he's transforming, is it painful for
Oh
him?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because his
Okay.
his 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 bones and skin are
Yeah.
changing, right? His
It's like,
limbs, his tendons, everything. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That's part of being a werewolf. Just yeah, it's painful. It's painful, and the hair coming out, your mouth. All of
Yeah.
a sudden, your
All of
jaw
your
gets extended. Everything.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
your
That's
teeth.
why. That's why, in the very beginning when you were asking me to where did I get the idea, you see that in a lot of werewolf movies, right?
Right.
But the real best one that started that, even though there's older werewolf movies before that, but A
Mhm.
Werewolf in London, again, it got a lot of acclaim for that his first transformation,
Right.
because they didn't have CGI and computers
Yeah.
back then. They did it all through visuals, and it's really awesome when he turns to Wolfman and his limbs extending out, and then turning
Oh,
into claws, and
yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's a painful process.
Yeah, I would imagine that's interesting. So that leads me to another question that I thought about just
Hmm.
now. Is it something that you think would not necessarily become less painful over time, but something that he doesn't feel it as much? Like he doesn't feel the pain as much because he's done it so many times as time goes on.
That's something yeah, that's something good to contemplate, not talked about in the book. In this first one, I didn't do that, as I think he just gets more ready for it because he doesn't,
Hmm.
the first time he doesn't know what's going to happen.
Hmm.
But I think he expects to be painful. But maybe that's something I could write in the second book. That's a good idea. It's like he gets used to it, but it's still painful, right? Because
Right.
his body's changing.
But he like
Um,
knows how to prepare for it by
yeah,
then.
yeah,
And he's like, all
yeah.
right, I gotta do this, get
Okay,
everything
let's get it.
ready.
Let's get it over with. Full moon.
Yeah.
Come on now. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great storyline that I could put in the next one.
Well,
His
there you go.
transformation. There you go. Well, I've been on other podcasts and I've gotten good ideas on there. It's like
Yeah.
because I don't know everything. I don't see everything, and it's like I'm here to talk about the book, but also, I'm an open-minded person. It's like, I learn from other people, and it's like, it's like, hey, you know what? That's a good point right there. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I could make that work, right? Yeah.
Right.
And then, because,
Okay.
true, the reader, after a while, they don't want to keep, after a certain while, the reader just wants to know what happens after, when he transforms, what happens after, right? It's like, let's get into the adventure part. It's like
Uh-huh.
the transformation is just, that's what it is, right? He's just transforming. It
Hmm.
becomes an afterthought, right? So
Yeah.
maybe after a while, just write it where it's like, okay, let's get it done. Boom, he's a werewolf, right?
Right.
There you go. There you
Or
go.
like it may be the transition happens faster or
Hmm.
something, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, and yeah, maybe he doesn't. It's lessened, because he knows what to expect and he's mentally prepared for it, so
Yeah.
it's not as painful. Yeah, yeah.
I always like to bring it back to the person behind the work for a moment.
Hmm.
So, what kind of stories or creators influenced you early on? So, I know you
Well,
talked about the detective stuff,
yeah, actually, those are
but
the two guys, and then I've read a lot of mysteries in the past. Agatha Christie, loved all those mysteries. You know what? I've read very few horror stories.
oh,
I rather see the movies.
yeah.
And again, I wasn't planning on coming up with a werewolf story. It just came to me because of that night. driving
Mm-hmm.
back from my friend's house, right? And
Right.
then 20, 20, 26 years later, popping in my brain,
Yeah.
almost 27 years later, popping in my brain, it's like, hey, what, well, it's like, I got to do something with this. But why a werewolf story of all things? Because that's what it looked like, on that
Mm-hmm.
road, right? And so the only thing I can say is those detective stories that I've introduced, those two authors, because they're my two favorite authors in terms of police stories.
Mm-hmm.
It's just they influence me in a way that how I develop the story and how to throw in the clues in the story, not to give everything away, slowly give it away, and let the reader think and
Yeah.
kind of figure out what's saying and then surprise them, totally
Mm-hmm.
surprise them, right? So to me, those are my two biggest influences because I've read most of their books. And then another series that I read was Lee Child, the Jack Reacher series, right? I've read
Mm.
a lot of his books and I love that stuff. And then just,
Isn't there a show?
yeah, it's on Amazon. It's called Reacher.
Doesn't it have, oh my God, I can only remember his name.
Alan Ritchson, that's the
He,
main actor. Yeah.
yeah. The only reason I can't remember his actual name, the only name I can ever remember from him is a specific character that he played in a TV series called Blue Mountain State. And
He was in that?
he played that Thad Castle.
That Castle. Oh,
Oh
that's
my
an
God.
interesting name.
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
was
know
a
about that.
great show.
I read about him. He was actually in the what's that book? No, what's those movies that were based out of a book? The Not the Mockingjay. What were the ones before that? The Hunger
Um,
Games. He was in the
oh
second.
yeah.
He was in the second one. He
Mm-hmm.
was with that. He was with that another. He was blonde in that movie. And he has the other blonde lady, and they were vicious, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're real cocky. They're like, we're gonna get you. So he's in that movie. He's about 30 pounds lighter. Yeah, he played.
He's like jacked in
Well,
Reacher.
oh yeah, yeah, I love that show, So again, that's where I get I think this is where I get a lot of my inspiration and how to create the stories. It's just because I read so many of those and I love
Mm-hmm.
spy thrillers too. I've read a lot of spy thrillers from what was the author's name? God, what's his last name? He died, he passed away, but he wrote they made one movie of his, but the movie didn't come out any good. I can't think of his last name. Spy thrillers. I didn't read a lot of Tom Clancy books because they're too long. They're really thick.
They make video games now.
Yeah, they make video games. Yeah.
Tom
I love this.
Clancy's
I love this.
Ghost Recon or something.
Rose Recon. Yeah, they did that from Tom Clancy. There's another author that I really like. His name is Mark Greaney. He wrote the Gray Man series, and I read all those books, and I love all of them. He's written like about 17, 18 of those.
What is it called? The Gray Man?
The Gray Man series, and it's Mark Greaney is the author's name. It's really good spy thrillers. It's really good stuff, and I love all that stuff. And it's funny, you would think reading all that stuff, I would come up with a hard-boiled, detective or spy book or something.
Yeah,
like
but
that.
you had
And
the
then,
story brewing in your head for like 26
yeah,
years.
yeah, it brewed in there, and I use all that stuff that in there. And if anything, I learned how to tell the story the way they did it, right?
Yeah.
And if I don't read those guys, if I don't read all those books, I wouldn't have known how to create my story. Simple as that. So I give where credit is due, right?
Right.
Thank you to all those wonderful books that I've read, right?
Yeah. Okay. So these are going to be some quick fire questions.
Sure.
I've got a few. Just go with your first instinct.
Okay.
Okay. What's one word that you would use to describe the Wolfman?
Symbolic.
Yeah.
Right. Symbolic. Yeah.
Okay.
I've answered that earlier, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Symbolic, right? He's a symbol of something, right? Either something vicious or something good. In my case, something good. So
there you go.
Yep.
If he had a theme song, what would it be?
God, because he loves all kinds of music. I'm a big funk guy. If he had what would be a good song for Titus? Oh my God, there's so many. There's a song that I've been listening to lately from a BT Express. It's an old funk song. It's just Do It Till You're Satisfied, I guess. And that's a good song, but it's more of a romantic song. What would be a good song for Titus? Oh my God.
It's making you think, huh?
Yeah, because there's that's a very open-ended question.
Yep.
What would be a good song for Titus that I can think of? God, what would be a great song? There's an oldie called The Magic Touch. I mean, in a way, he transforms and that's not that he touches things and turns to gold, but it's like, yeah, no, that's too lame. I'm sorry, that doesn't work.
It's okay.
That's a great question. What? 'Cause, God, there's so much great music. I can't even think of a song that expresses his personality. Let me see.
Yeah.
God, there's so much. Oh, this might be The Power of Love. There's so many. I don't know. I can't really think of. There's so many good songs.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard.
That's a
'Cause
tough question.
I've got thousands of songs in my head, and I can't come up with one good song that would. I haven't even thought of that. What would be a good song? Because again, I love funk music. Let me think of a good funk song. Let me see.
I don't know a whole lot, but my husband has some on his Spotify, and I don't remember the names.
I can't think of one. I'm trying to think of a song that maybe has a
Oh,
monster theme in it.
there's one that I know. It's I don't know if it's funk, but Right Place, Wrong Time. Let me see who it's by.
Right place, wrong time.
By Dr. John. Gosh, it's from the 70s, 1973.
Wow. That's a while ago.
Yeah, this was before I was even a thought in my parents' head.
Well, it's funny. It's like most music is centered around a love theme, right?
Yeah.
Most great songs are centered around a love theme, right? What would be a good song that has
Okay.
like
So sorry to cut you off. I just looked up, right place, wrong time, right? And it says here, the phrase itself describes a situation where someone is in the appropriate or expected location, but the time is unfortunate, causing them to miss an opportunity despite being well positioned. Or, yeah.
That kind of describes what is going on with him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll take that song. I'll adopt that one. Yeah, why not? Because I can't come up with one right myself. It's like,
oh, it's so good.
It's funny, if my story ever becomes a movie, which I'm hoping it does. I hope I get involved with the film crew to decide what the soundtrack would be like. There's so many
Listen to that song. Listen to that song first.
Well, here you go. Here you go. In the movie, one of the great things about that movie, The American Werewolf in London, they play all the Moon songs in there, right? They play all the Moon songs. Moon Dance by Van Morrison, Blue Moon by Bobby Vinton, all the Moon songs are all in there. Anything involving the moon and being in love under the moon and all that. So
that
being that he's a werewolf,
sense.
it's got a great soundtrack. That's one of the great things about the movie. If I were to adopt any one song from that, it would be one of those songs because, the power of the full moon is what turns him to that, and then because of music, he the magic inside of him comes out, and he's human. He's a bigger than life human being. Yeah, Blue Moon, anything like that. Any of those Moon songs would be great, but I don't have any one. I can't think of it because I got so many songs in my head. You stumped me there, young lady.
Sorry.
No, nothing to be sorry about. No, that's a great question.
Okay, so are you a morning writer or a night writer or neither?
More night than anything. Yeah.
Okay.
More night than anything.
Okay. Yeah. And last quick fire question. Do you prefer coffee or tea?
Coffee in the morning, tea at night. But I drink herbal tea at night. My wife and I, we always have tea at night. To
I don't like either of them.
You don't like either? Really?
Coffee is just like, without all of the like stuff that Starbucks puts in it, I can't. And then tea, I don't know if you've ever heard of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so there's this one character named Zuko. He's like bad at first, and then he becomes good. But his uncle loves tea, and Zuko calls it, he says it's just hot leaf juice or something like that, or hot leaf water or something like that. God, and funny. I'm like, that's perfect because that's what it tastes like.
Yeah, that's what it is. No, you know what? There's a lot of good teas out there. I love like jasmine tea. It depends how it's made, how it's prepared, everything, right? There's a lot of great teas out there. Coffee, in terms of coffee, I do like creamer in my coffee. But you know what? If it's really good coffee, I like it black sometimes because then you could taste how good the coffee is.
My husband will only drink black tea.
Yeah.
or
So even with
coffee.
tea, right?
I
Even with
meant
tea or coffee,
black coffee.
black coffee,
Yeah.
even tea. There's people who like their coffee, their tea just plain because they could taste the full flavor of the coffee. I love it.
Blah.
Yeah,
Nope. That ain't for me.
it ain't for you.
Nope. Okay, as we start to wrap up,
Mhm.
what's next for you? Are we going to see more from this world or something completely different? I know you said that you wanted to start the second book soon, but
Mhm.
have you been thinking about writing anything different from that
No,
at
no,
all?
no. I have that's a great question. No, I do have plans for volume two,
Hmm.
which is a continuation of the story. But what else? So I have four books planned. I have
Oh,
the
wow.
volume two,
Hmm.
and then I have the one after that. It's going to be called Origins, where I go deep in the werewolf lore and the werewolf
Oh,
history, which comes from I've I've a lot of it comes from like Eastern Europe, not so much in England, but parts of Greece, parts of Turkey, parts of Macedonia. The werewolf lore, that's where it originated a lot of it, just Eastern Europe. So
hmm.
I'm a delve deep into that, and then I got two side books. So one would be for Nicole Santoro, who's his love interest, right? Becomes his love interest, Titus' love interest. So
Hmm.
I'm gonna write a book about her life before, leading up to where she meets Titus. And then I have one of his antagonists, his first antagonist, who becomes his ally, Everett
Hmm.
Kane. And I'm gonna write his book because he's an ex-Marine sniper and tracker, you know, his
Oh,
adventures. So I'm gonna write both of them where their stories where then bingo they intersect with Titus, right? Because they
okay.
because they're key characters in that story, right?
Right.
So I want to write about them so people get to know who these guys are, not just people that were in, bingo, they just popped up in the book. So to me, it's like I want to write about them, and write something interesting in their lives leading up to that part. So yeah, four books in the works. And then after the Origins book, write something else. So that would be right now, that would be five books. And then the sixth would be, the one after the Origins to continue that arc, right? The
Right.
arc of
So, like,
Titus.
is that gonna like explore the first werewolf, maybe?
It could. It depends on what I come up with my research. But
Right.
yeah, it's gonna be there's gonna be parts in there if I can find scripts,
Right.
scripts in there, relics, anything that will
Hmm.
help that would help bring light to, how this werewolf came about, right? And of
Yeah.
course, it'll be a book of fiction, so I could throw anything in there, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
use a little bit of history and then come up with that, and then
It's
because
awesome when like you can kind of balance the two or mix the two.
yeah, yeah, because he's an educated man. He's a teacher. He loves history, music history, and now that he's a werewolf, he wants to find out what's
Like,
going on.
where
But
does that come from?
yeah, but there's other parts in there that I'm gonna throw in there that are gonna throw some modern stuff into that. That'll be the mix, right? So yeah, that's all.
Okay.
That's all in the works. Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Final question.
Hmm.
Is there anything you wish readers understood about the Dancing Wolfman that they might miss on a first read?
That they might miss. I think some people might actually miss the whole metaphor of the monster inside you,
Hmm.
because they could just read it as pure entertainment, right?
Hmm.
It's like, oh, it's a werewolf story. I love how this guy, but the
Yeah.
the main thing that comes out of it, right, is like, what would you do when presented with
Right.
a situation like that? Some
Right.
people might not get that, right? Some people would just read the werewolf story and it's like, oh, that's a good werewolf story. Wow.
Right.
But if I
They
would want
might.
them to come away with them after the first read, they didn't get it, go back and it's like, hey, yeah, what if that's something like that happened to me? What would I do? Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Like
So
they could potentially miss the symbolism behind.
that's it. That's it. That's a great question. I like that question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, Rick, this has been such a fun conversation. Thank you
Yeah.
for
Thank
taking
you.
the time. Yeah, thank you for taking the time
Of
to come
course.
on and share your
Of course.
work.
Of course, it's been an honor. I love discussing this with people, and again, it's like every time I talk to somebody, I learn something new. You
Yeah.
threw a lot of good stuff. Maybe I'm gonna go and explore a song that'll be fitting for Titus Wolf, right?
Yeah.
And all that. Now you had me thinking on that. I gotta find, because somebody else might ask me the same thing, right? Because
Yeah.
it's
You
it's a
never know.
music based theme, a story, right? It's like, hey, I might get asked this again, and it's like, I better know what song that'll make Titus, what would be his theme song, right? So
Right.
that's something I got to explore there. Thank you.
Yeah. For everyone listening, if you want to check out the Dancing Wolfman or connect with Rick, I'll have everything linked in the show notes. And as always, stay curious.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's it for today's side quest. If you have any topic suggestions, send us an email at darkcharacterprofiler@gmail.com. Don't forget, Dark Character Profiler returns next week. Thank you for listening.